Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did, so let's get started. Number 5 was the Garfield movie, making $3.7 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $85 million and a worldwide total of $230 million. Gotta give credit where credit is due, as the Garfield movie is still holding like a champ, even going up against a juggernaut as its competition, and we'll get to that at the end of the video. But even with that, this film is still putting up a good fight. It only dropped 21% this weekend, which after taking quite a hit last weekend is still very respectable. It's still bringing in audiences. Families are still going out to see it despite the other big family movie out right now, and because of that, it is now just $5 million away from surpassing $90 million domestically. I think it's got enough juice to get there, but because of the juggernaut it's facing off against, and it's only got another 2 weeks until Despicable Me 4, I just don't think it's going to get to $100 million domestically. It's probably going to get close, or maybe even just barely get over it, but because of everything it's going up against right now, I just don't see that happening, and it's not like it really needs to. Again, this is a $60 million movie. It's done pretty well thus far domestically, especially after the disappointing Memorial Day opening it had and the lackluster reception it got from audiences. The fact that it's legged out this well is still pretty impressive, and it really overperformed internationally. Again, $230 million total worldwide. That is insane for a $60 million budgeted movie. So yeah, the Garfield movie is still doing very well despite everything it's going up against. This is definitely going to be the last time we see it, but in the top 5. But man, it had quite the impressive run. It wasn't another if by any means, domestically speaking at least, but given how it started and the reception it got, this is still a very impressive result for the Garfield movie. I can't see anyone being upset over how well this movie has done. Number 4 was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, making $3.8 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $164 million and a worldwide total of $379 million. So believe it or not, folks, it was actually a close race for the 5th and 4th spot, as the estimates on Sunday were that both Garfield and Planet of the Apes had tied, but it was Planet of the Apes that eventually was able to claim victory over Garfield, which is still very impressive due to the fact that it's been out much longer than Garfield, and it had a worser cinema score rating, worse initial audience reception. But yeah, the fact that this movie is still going strong thus far is just quite exceptional. The legs on this thing are something that I haven't seen in a while, especially for a movie like this. Obviously, it didn't have much competition to face off in May, which is probably, well, actually no, definitely something to attribute here. But still, the fact that this movie is still in the top 5 with all of the bigger movies coming out for the summer, very impressive. The word of mouth on this has just been exceptional thus far. It gets closer and closer to Rise of the Planet of the Apes domestic total. Again, I'm not sure if it's gonna quite get there. I think it's gonna make enough to equal it pretty much, or once again barely just get over it, and it also needs 20 million more to surpass the $400 million milestone worldwide. Again, probably just gonna barely get over that milestone. We are in the slow period for this movie. This movie is definitely slowing down for sure, but man, still, what a successful run this movie had. Again, not like it had a lot to face off against prior to this, but still, given that initial reception and how things have been going for the summer, up until this point, this is still a very impressive, respectable number for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Number 3 was The Bike Riders, opening with $9.6 million this weekend domestically and $13 million worldwide. So this did pretty much about what I expected it to do. It would crack the top 5 for sure, maybe make somewhat of an impact on it, but not a huge one. I didn't see a lot of buzz with this movie or a lot of marketing for it. In fact, I think it would have been better had it originally come out when it was originally supposed to, around the fall, for the fall movie season, as that would have been around, a lot more prestigious films, and I think this movie would have probably been able to make a better name for itself, but then Disney sold it to Focus Features. features, and we ended up with this movie in the summer, and now I believe this movie is probably going to get really overshadowed by a lot of the other bigger summer movies. But it's still not a bad opening given the type of movie this is. I mean, it's a $40 million movie, but for the type of movie this is, skewing older audiences, the fact that it got to number 3, again, pretty impressive. It's an old school type, biker gang type movie, so the fact that it was able to make this much of an impact at the box office is quite impressive. I will say that it'll be interesting to see if this movie can out. Again, it's got a $40 million price tag, so it's going to need a lot of help to get to the doubling point. Hell, it's going to need some help getting to just the initial production budget, and with the B Cinema score rating this got, that's probably gonna be a struggle for this movie. But again, the fact that this was able to make as much as it did and rank as high as it did in the top 5 is still pretty impressive, so I'll give the Bike Riders that. So yeah, pretty much not much more else to say here. Did about what I expected it to do. I don't think it's going to last very long in the top 10, but still not a horrible opening for a movie like this. Number 2 was once again Bad Boys Ride or Die, making $18 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $147 million and a worldwide total of $289 million. Another great weekend for Bad Boys Ride or Die, it's proving itself to be very solid counter-programming against the sea of a lot of family blockbusters, this one being the R-rated action comedies, really allowing this to play to its strengths, as the word of mouth has really taken off for this movie, and it's ranked as some of the biggest films in this franchise. It's now the second biggest film in the franchise domestically, as it surpassed Bad Boys 2 and the first Bad Boys. It's still behind Bad Boys for Life, but I think it's gonna make enough to at least get pretty close, or maybe even just barely surpass it, as right now it's just $3 million away for surpassing $150 million domestically, which, given the time this video will come out, it'll probably surpass by later today. So early congratulations for that. And considering how strong its legs have been, the word of mouth, I think it'll be able to make enough to at least get close or just barely surpass the $200 million milestone domestically, which again, for an R-rated action comedy like this, is really impressive, And on the worldwide side of things, it is just a little over $10 million away from surpassing the $300 million milestone worldwide. That will make it triple its $100 million budget, which is fantastic to see. And given how popular it's been, it wouldn't surprise me if it surpassed $400 million worldwide very soon. It's going to be a slow crawl to get there, kind of like what's happened with the Planet of the Apes, but I still think it's gonna be able to make enough to get there. It's the only real major action movie out right now like this right now. So yeah, just another solid performance for Bad Boys Ride or Die. I look forward to seeing how much further this movie can go, and yeah, just not much more else to say here except job well done. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was once again Inside Out 2, making $101 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $356 million and a worldwide total of $725 million. This is now the 7th film ever to make $100 million in its second weekend, behind the Avengers, Black Panther, Jurassic World, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and Star Wars The Force Awakens, and it is the biggest second weekend ever for an animated movie, topping the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Frozen 2, Incredibles 2, and Finding Dory. That's right, you heard that right, folks. This made another $100 million this weekend. If it made this much last weekend, it would have been excellent, but it made it this weekend. We're on week 2, folks. It only dropped around 35%. This is more than a big summer blockbuster. This is a phenomenon. Everybody is going to see this movie. I knew this movie was going to be big. Hell, I know a lot of people knew it was going to be big, but to this degree, this is something we will not see again for a while. We have this year's Barbie and Top Gun Maverick. This is definitely already leagues past, Mario. And honestly, and now it's already headed for, Barbie and Top Gun's numbers, for sure, due to just the magnitude of this performance. Like, this is again, we're only on the second week. This isn't like a major Marvel movie. This isn't like a Star Wars or a legacy sequel to a classic film of the 80s. This is Inside Out 2, and it's performing this well. So much so that it is now officially, both domestically and worldwide, the biggest movie of the year. It has surpassed Dune Part 2, which, given how Denis Villeneuve felt about his movie for months being the biggest film of the year, I'm sure he's happy that finally something has dethroned it. And it's looking like this is going to be the first film of the year to crack $1 billion. And again, it won't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if it cracked it this weekend. The movie's doing so damn good for itself. And honestly, I don't see any movie performing as well as this movie has. There's probably gonna be some movies that get close, and by close I mean 200 and 300 million dollars off from this movie, but nothing is going to dethrone. Like, what's gonna beat this? It ain't gonna be Despicable Me, it ain't gonna be Deadpool, it ain't gonna be, Sonic or The Lion King prequel. This is just, I am just bewildered and very happy to see this movie performing as well as it has. It's a great movie. If you've seen my review, I love this movie, and the fact that it's reached this massive of an audience not only shows how much that first film resonated with people, but how much this one is resonating with people too. People are still going to see this movie, and it's performing these types of numbers. These are Star Wars, Spider-Man No Way Home, Avengers, okay, but maybe not Avengers Endgame, but like Top Gun, Barbie level numbers, folks. This is insane to see. And again, it's just Inside Out 2. It's not like a huge hyped up event film or anything. And yes, I'm very excited to see how much further this movie is going to go. Hell, there are people saying this movie has enough to crack 600 million domestically, which again, probably a month ago would have seemed like implausible, and yet here we are. Again, like I said last weekend, this movie's got like 2 weeks before Despicable Me 4, and while I'm sure that's going to affect this movie's performance, it's not going to do much damage to this. This movie has already just made so much money. It doesn't even need any more money at this point, and yet it's still going to continue to grow, still going to bring audiences there. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm very befuddled and very impressed by this movie's performance, and also very happy to see it bringing in these types of numbers. This is an absolutely phenomenal performance for Inside Out 2, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger, folks. Just wow. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we have 2 new wide releases, the first being Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1. This is the first chapter of Kevin Costner's new Western, with the second part supposedly coming out in August, and he's also apparently got like 4 more of these down the pipeline if these do well. Obviously, this has been the biggest wild card of the summer for me. This can go either way, It's an old school type Western geared towards older audiences. Both of its chapters are coming out within the same summer. Definitely a ballsy, risky choice on Kevin Costner's part. But Yellowstone is very popular and people love Kevin Costner, so I'm sure there's gotta be an audience out here. Maybe there's a chance it taps into that older skewering audience that didn't go to the movies recently and may give this movie a shot. I do see some promos for this movie, and there does seem to be a bit of a buzz with this, but it's nothing major or huge to where I think it's gonna really explode or take off. So yeah, a big wild card. I don't think it's gonna flop hard by any means, but it wouldn't surprise me if this didn't really do the numbers that I think they would hope for this movie to do. So yeah, big wild card. This can go either way for me. Gonna be interesting to see where this movie lands this weekend. And then the other new major wide release is A Quiet Place Day One, the prequel to the beloved horror franchise Quiet Place, where it will show off, the very first day of the alien attacks. Now, it's been no secret that it's been a pretty bad year for the horror genre. Just nothing has been really reaching the heights of years prior. A lot of these movies have disappointed despite, making their budgets back. But I think this is going to be the movie to take us back into the right direction. Quiet Place, like I said, is a beloved horror franchise, definitely a beloved modern horror franchise, and it looks like this one's going to deliver as well. I don't think it's going to reach the heights of its predecessors, but it wouldn't surprise me if this movie did very, very well for itself. The marketing has been very solid. I've been seeing a lot of promos and stuff for this movie, and being out, this is pretty much the first major horror film of the year, pretty much, as again, nothing has really broken out to the degree we have seen other horror movies do. And the buzz is there for this movie. A lot of people are interested in seeing this. I think that we're going to see a very solid number here. I don't think it's going to top Inside Out 2, just because that movie, again, is just a phenomenon. This would have to be another horror phenomenon for this to be Inside Out 2 this weekend. But it wouldn't surprise me if this had a very solid opening for itself. It's another horror film, and it's another film in the Quiet Place franchise. This movie has its fans, and I think a lot of people are interested in checking this out. So yeah, very solid expectations for A Quiet Place Day 1. I think we're going to see a pretty solid number this weekend, but we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that landed in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.